X-Pac 12360. Featuring weekly news, insider commentary, and interviews with superstars, past and present from the world of pro wrestling.
A new day is dawning for DX.
And now, your host, Sean X-Pac Waltman.
Been in the game for over 20 years. He's won over 19 total championships between TNA, ROH, and the New Japan Pro Wrestling. He is the current Ring of Honor World Champion, known as Curryman and sometimes the King of Indies. Please welcome Christopher Daniels.
Hello.
What's up, man? We gotta give a warm welcome.
The fallen angel
himself.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
King of Indies.
It's been a while then since I've been called that, man. It's something that I had for a long time, but I don't feel like that applies anymore.
But at the same time, like now, King of Indies is like to me would be something like that's a good. I'll be the King of Indies.
I never looked at it as a negative. I never did. But I feel like the period of time in my career when I was the King of the Indies, like 98, 99 till about 2002, it fit because I was going everywhere. I was working everywhere. But once TNA and Ring of Honor came around, and especially the times when I was only working there, like you can't really call those guys independents anymore. They're the step between independents and like the biggest of big time.
Isn't everything independent now? Because it was all like, okay, independent used to be called outlaw.
Right.
And, you know, if you weren't part of the NWA, then you were independent or outlaw, however you want to put it.
Sure.
And like now we're all outlaw.
Like what the territories were in the 80s, 70s, and 80s became indies when everything became under the umbrella of Vince.
Sure.
So I was fine being called the King of Indies then. I don't feel it fits to me now because being a part of Ring of Honor and TNA, like there are guys that still make their living. I mean, look at Colt Cabana.
That's right.
He's everywhere. He works for Ring of Honor, but he's also doing everywhere, every weekend. He's somewhere. And to me, if you called Colt the King of the Indies right now, that would be like completely fitting. So I don't feel like I deserve to be called King of the Indies at this point. You know what I mean? There are guys that are
ROH World Champion,
right?
Man.
Yeah. So I'm the King of ROH. I don't mind being called that.
I'm so happy for you. I mean, I can't think of a more deserving person.
Oh, thank you, Sean. I appreciate that, man.
Always been a big fan. Hey, well, first of all, I wasn't aware that Sam DeCero trained you.
They
started out Windy City.
That's where I started. Yeah, I moved up there after I graduated college, trying to break into the acting scene up there.
Right.
And my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, we were both trying to break into acting in the theater scene up there. And when things were going not going well, I always joked to her like, "Hey, you know, if this acting thing doesn't work out, I can always be a pro wrestler, ha ha ha." Because I grew up watching it, you know, I'm a big fan. My wife found Sam's school in the Yellow Pages, made an appointment for me, and she said, "You're going to see this guy." So I went in and I met with Sam, and she says I came out of that meeting with like my eyes glazed over, like and she says I was hypnotized, and I decided, you know, I was going to give this a try, and if I washed out, if I was crap, then at least I could tell my kids I tried it, and it ended up being good for it.
What did he say to hypnotize you? I want to hear what the spiel was.
God, I don't remember specifically. It wasn't. There wasn't anything where I was like...
Was he blowing any smoke?
No, I don't think so. He was very honest. And especially at that point, I was 180 pounds. Yeah. So he looked at me and was like, you know, it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard work. He wasn't trying to steal my money.
Sure.
You know what I mean? He wanted, you know... He knew that I was going to be in for a long road. Mm-hmm. And so I think the idea, though, of...
Did he tell you that, too? Hey, it's going to be tough for you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This wasn't like, hey, man, everything's going to be easy and hand over your money. And then once the money came, it was like, nope, and here's all the hard work. Yeah. No, he told me up front, like, this is going to be tough. You get into it, you get out of it what you put into it. And that's something I've always said to people.
In life.
Yeah, and the whole thing. And... I think it was just the idea, like when I grew up, I was watching guys like Dusty Rhodes and the Road Warriors and Nikita Koloff and Sting. And so in my mind, there was a bit of a disconnect between the type of person I was and the type of people they were. I thought, oh, that's a dream that's out of my reach.
Unattainable, huh? You thought so.
Yeah. And,
so
and
then,
honestly,
what was your motivation if you thought that was unattainable?
Well, honestly, at that point in my life, when I was 10, 12 years old, I thought it was unattainable. Around 1990, 91, I turn on Global Wrestling Federation, and I see a young man by the name of the Lightning Kid. And honest to God, Sean, this is not me blowing smoke because I'm on your show. You were the first person that I saw on television where I looked at that person and I said, oh my God, he's not the Road Warriors. He's not Nikita Koloff, but he's in there and he's, you know, successful. And so you were the one that made me think, oh my God, it's possible for a smaller guy, an athletic guy, to do this. And I mean, and it's funny too, because when I finally met you, like, you weren't small to me. You're big to me. You're like 230, 240 when I met you.
No, I was never that big.
You were a bigger guy, but you're taller than me. You're bigger than me. But on television, you were the small guy.
Right.
And so, like, when I started, I was 180 pounds. And
which is like a mid-sized guy now.
well, yes, exactly. I was just going to say, like, back then, I was at the bottom end of it. Now I'm in the middle. When we started, Sam DeCero, he sort of saw that there was a change in body type. So at Windy City, there was heavyweight, middleweight, and lightweight.
Nice.
And so I was the first, not the first, I was, my first title that I ever won was the Windy City Lightweight Championship. And that was sort of the idea along, you know, the light heavyweights and the cruiserweights, that sort of thing. Not that Sam was the first guy to have that type of title, but he knew that there were going to be guys 180 pounds, 160 pounds that were going to come in,
So
and he wanted to make us.
He saw a little bit into the future.
Yeah. He saw that, like, if he wanted to be able to say, here is a school that you'll be able to do this, you know, he didn't want to, like, take their money and ruin their dreams. You know what I mean? He wanted guys to have opportunities. So he made opportunities by having a lightweight division, and that was what I did for the first 2 years of Windy City. I was wrestling in that lightweight division.
And that, were you at all yet developing your style? Like, you know, I mean, were the stuff, how, as a lightweight or a middleweight, like, were the guys, were you trying to work that style, you know, the high flying style?
Absolutely, yeah, because I felt like if I was a smaller guy, but I tried to wrestle like a big guy, then all you would see was the difference in terms of body size. If I wrestled the same style that the 240-pound guy did, and you looked at both our matches, then you'd be like, well, this guy's really small. Why is he trying to do this?
Sure.
So I tried to play to my strengths, which were, you know, I was faster. I knew a little bit of high flying. And then I was watching guys like, one of the first things that I tried to do was the springboard, like Brian Pillman, because that caught my eye, and I was like, oh. So, like, in my first couple of matches, I was doing the springboard, and then I went into doing the springboard spin kick, which became something early on that was in my repertoire. And but yeah, that was the idea was, not that I didn't like revolutionize the style, but I was certainly looking into that and going, okay, this is stuff that I can do. That you know, I was doing crossbodies because I was like, oh, there's flying. That's me jumping off the ropes and using my body against my opponent rather than trying to muscle my opponent around.
Right on. Do you remember the first time we met? Ooh. Because the first time I remember running into you was at WWF TV taping out here in California somewhere.
Probably.
I think it was Anaheim.
Was it Beyond the Mat, backstage, or Beyond the Mat?
It might have been, actually.
That might have been
right around that time.
Sure.
Because, like I'm going to ask you in a little bit, what, you know, how come you never, you know, actually ended up working full time in WWE? Because you were definitely on the radar, man, because we all talked about you.
Right.
You know?
That's good to know.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember talking to Bruce Pritchard about you. I don't know how many times. You know, they were very high on you.
Yeah. Well, I felt like the period of time then, and it's probably one of the first times I met you, if that wasn't the first time, because I was going there and doing dark matches and the syndicated stuff, and I actually, because of doing that, Cornette got me into Dory's dojo that they were doing out of Titan Towers at that point.
Right.
They were doing it in Titan Towers.
In Titan Towers or at the studio?
The studio, I think.
The studio's down the road from Titan Towers a little ways.
Okay, then it was the place that had the gym and the cafeteria.
Oh no, that's Titan Towers.
Oh, then it was Titan Towers. Yeah, because they had it in one of, pretty close. Yeah, because do you remember when Austin filled Vince's car with cement?
Yes.
I remember that was the week we were doing it, because that car was in the parking garage, just set up, just filled with cement, because they had to.
Was it next to Sergeant Slaughter's camouflage limo?
No, that was the only car down there that I recognized. So
we actually put the ring on the roof one time and filmed the commercial the opening for Raw.
Okay. Yeah.
And there was this guy. He used to do the. I don't want to go off. Anyways, he had a toupee, and Owen lit it on fire one. Oh, freaking hilarious.
Let's go into the weeds on this. Let's
Yeah.
tell this story.
No, we'll talk about that some other time.
Oh man, that's great.
Anyways, go ahead, Jimbo.
Well, so you were doing enhancement matches for like Sunday Night Heat and Velocity and
Right.
whatnot. Who are you working against?
The first one I ever had, let me preface this for a second. For a long time, I didn't put myself out there for enhancement matches because something that Sam said, and this wasn't something that he was 100% firm on, but he mentioned, he was like, listen, if you go there and you are a jobber, they may never look at you as anything but
That's
that.
right.
So for a long time, I didn't do it. Finally, when I moved out to California, the opportunity arose, and I was like, well, you know what? I've got nothing to lose. I've got nothing to lose. Let me go in there, and maybe they see something, and they might decide to do something with me. So the first time I ever did one, I drove to Phoenix, and this was when they were doing the light heavyweight stuff.
Okay.
And they had me wrestle Taka Michinoku, and that was my first television match. And Taka, who didn't know me, but his liaison through WWE was Victor Quinones.
Oh, yeah.
Victor Quinones and my tag team partner from Chicago, Kevin Quinn, they were good friends. And so Victor knew me because of the stuff that we did in Puerto Rico together back in '95.
Victor was a brilliant guy, actually.
Absolutely. And he had a lot to do with bringing the Japanese and the Mexican wrestlers into WWE at that period of time. And there was a lot of good stuff that was happening and could have happened if WWE had gotten into like 100% into that light heavyweight. They would have had a lot of great Mexican talent, a lot of great Japanese talent. So I had that match with Taka, and honestly, that match sort of opened doors in two different directions for me because it got me into Japan, which got me over there frequently, and then it also, being on syndicated television, it got me the opportunity to get booked on the East Coast, and that's where all the independent work was at the time. And luckily, after that, once I started working for different independent companies over there, when the business sort of took a downturn, I had made up enough name that still flying me out from the West Coast was a good investment for an independent company, as opposed to, oh, we can't afford your flight.
We're talking about, like, at this point when it started going down, it was probably 2003-ish. 2002, Tom.
No, even yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Yes, because by that time I had Ring of Honor going and TNA was starting to become something because they were 2002. Yes. So yeah, right around that period of time when independent companies were like, oh man, we can't fly in from California. Sure. I was lucky that I was like, oh no, that was a good investment to them still. So I got lucky.
And you're talking about Sam's advice too. I agree with him. If you spend too much time in that enhancement talent role, it will be very hard for them to look at you in any other light.
Right.
That being said, I think it's okay to go and just let them see you.
Right.
And do that. Was your match with Taco? Was it a competitive match?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
That's
See,
a little different, man.
he gave me the opportunity to shine.
Yeah.
Like I only ever had one match where the guy was like, "Hey man, I'm sorry, I got to eat you up," and I went, "Okay," because I was wrestling Droz. And Droz came to me and he's like, "Listen, man, this isn't personal." And I go, "Understood, dude." And he ate me up. And I just asked him, I said, "Do you mind if I do some stuff so that it looks like I'm fighting back?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." So he let me he tried to backdrop me and I backflipped and landed on my feet and rolled him up once. And the rest of it was just wham. But I mean, he was good about it, or not good. I mean, he was polite about it. He understood, and he wasn't a dick. He wasn't like,
Yeah,
So.
and he was pretty green, and and so that's kind of what he had to do. It wasn't like he could go out there and just have a really
Right. And at the time he was
him.
doing something with, I want to say, Steve Blackman, and so they were pushing those guys to get to do something together against each other. And of course he's not going to give me a 50-50 match, and I understood that. So I mean, it was cool that he even asked, or even brought it up to me.
Any other guys you worked with there that stood out?
I did a bunch of matches with Taka. I did 2 matches with Taka. I did one with Sho and Dick Togo in a tag. I did a couple.
Sho Funaki or Big Show?
No, Funaki. There was no Dick Togo and Big Show tag team. Although that would have been outstanding.
Dick Togo was my very first opponent in Japan.
Oh, he was awesome.
Yeah.
He was awesome.
He was just out here for PWG this weekend.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
He lives in Vietnam now. He started Vietnam Pro Wrestling or something crazy.
He did.
Yeah.
I did a bunch of dark matches with Ron Killings before he was on television.
Oh, yes.
I did a
One of
couple
my dear
darks.
friends.
I did a couple darks with Jeff Hardy. So I got to work a good range of guys, a good gamut of guys. And then I had dark matches where it was me and another local guy.
Right.
And sometimes I was up and sometimes I was
Sure.
down on that. So just
Now,
depended.
Were we in when I was in TNA? I showed up in TNA not long after they started, and I was still in Nashville at the fairgrounds.
Right.
Were we there together? Because I know we were in. Obviously we were in TNA when it was
In
Universal.
Orlando, yes.
Yeah, tons.
I was there when you did the stuff with AJ that one time.
Oh,
I worked
came
that
in,
show.
when China came with me.
Yes, I don't remember China.
Oh no, okay, might have been before that.
I thought the match that you had with AJ, I was there
it was
that
a singles
day.
match with
Yes,
AJ.
yes. I was there
Okay.
that day, but I didn't get a chance to see you just because the way the locker rooms were situated, like where you and AJ were, there was no easy access to get there. So like they let you guys have your space, and the rest of us were just sort of off and around doing our own
not a lot
stuff.
of room
So-
in that locker
no,
room
God
over
no,
there,
God
yeah.
no, yeah, and lots of stuff sort of blocked off, and we're walking like through hallways this big just to
Yeah.
get to the gorilla position and stuff. So yeah, I don't even think I may not have even said hey to you that day, only because. Did you get there as the show was going on?
Oh, I'm
or-
sure.
Yeah,
And I was running around, like back then I was really messed up still.
Right.
I mean, I was kind of hiding it well, actually you didn't have to hide it around there.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Right.
Because really what were they going to do at that point in their career? It's not like they're going to fire me. They kind of needed me.
Yeah.
So-
But yeah, I don't even think I got a chance to even like, hey man, have a good one or take care or be
Yeah.
safe or any of that. So, but I was there. Yeah, I was physically there. I just knew I was doing stuff. Like I did a couple of shows early on, and I was going back and forth to Japan, so I never got a whole lot of momentum going. And then finally in December of 2002, they offered me a spot. Not a full-time spot, but like they offered me a contract, and that was when they put me and Elix Skipper and Loki together.
Yes.
Triple X.
Triple X.
Yes.
And the whole point of that was all three of us were going back and forth to Japan, but we weren't going at the same time. So the idea was when I was in Japan, it would be Elix and Loki.
Yeah.
When Key was in Japan, me and Elix and that sort of thing. And we did that for about a year. And right around that time, I decided, the more often I go to Japan, the less likely I'm going to get any sort of momentum here in TNA.
Yeah.
So around 2004, I told Japan I'd like to take a little time off and see how this goes with TNA. And that was the last time I was full-time, or not full-time, but the last time that I did any sort of like long-term stuff with Japan.
When you were going over there, were you going as Christopher Daniels or as Curryman?
No, it was all Curryman. The first time I went to Japan, I was Christopher Daniels, and they offered me the Curryman spot for the next time I came back. And the next time I came back was that Masked Man tour.
Sorry, was that Michinoku or New Japan?
Michinoku.
Yeah.
Michinoku. At first
Okay.
it was Michinoku.
Yeah.
So 99, I had a tour at Michinoku as myself. They offered me the Curryman spot, and that was the Masked Man tour that JL did, Jerry
Yeah.
Lynn. So I did that, and that was the character. Curryman was the character that they created that got over. All the other ones were just just local
mask
guys.
thing that Jerry wore was some kind of one-off thing that I can't even remember the name of it, right?
Golga's
Golgotha
Cross or
or
something
something,
like that. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the idea. Like they had their full-time, Sasuke and Tiger Mask and Grand Naniwa. They had those
The crab
full-time.
guy, Grand Nino was a crab.
Yep. And then they
Crab
made
people.
they made characters just for that tournament. And by the end of that tournament, Curryman was over, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Please come back." And I was like, "Hell yeah, I'm coming back."
So how did Curryman go to wrestling in TNA? Was that your idea? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was doing the Fallen Angel character, and Russo and I had talked about doing the stuff with Sting, and that fell through. And they were always on me about like, "Oh, why are you called the Fallen Angel? Why are you called the Fallen Angel?" And I kept trying to pitch my ideas, and Vince and I sort of started one, but I felt like when I was doing the stuff with Sting, I felt like I was never the main focus
Right.
of Sting. They put me in there with Sting, but it was like, oh, by the way, Sting's fighting Abyss for the World Heavyweight title, but there's also Christopher Daniels in the background.
Still Nashville.
No,
this
this
is
was
in
Orlando.
Okay,
This
Orlando.
was 2009.
Yeah.
And so finally,
Oh wow, 2009. Go fast forward.
yeah,
to
we fast forward a
2002.
while. Yeah,
Okay.
I wasn't Curryman for them until 2009, I think. So 2008, I'm doing the stuff with Sting. I finally have the singles match with Sting, and it's the first time we wrestle. And Vince is like, "Okay, Sting's up, and that's the end of the feud." And I go, "What? What's going on? That's the end of the feud? Oh, they don't like this. They're going to put you back in the X Division. Blah blah blah." So finally, I wrote this email and I said, "Listen, we're worrying too much about why I'm called the Fallen Angel, and maybe this character that I'm trying to do isn't fit. So we can do one or two things. You can just call me the Fallen Angel and it's a nickname like Nature Boy or Heartbreak Kid.
Sure.
It's just a name. Or what if I did this and I showed them Curryman stuff and I said I could do this character, I could go away for a while and refresh this thing. They liked Curryman, and so they brought me in as Curryman and they kept me there for a year.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was just like, oh yeah.
So how did Shark Boy and Super Eric come about in creating that
They
group?
put us together. I see it on the video now.
Yeah.
They just put us together the first day. Instead of debuting me in a singles, they debuted me in 2 tag matches. They had 1 tag match with me and Tiger Mask.
Yeah.
So we were just 2 Japanese
Tiger Mask
guys.
4?
Yes.
Okay.
Tiger Mask 4 was over there for a
He
little
was
bit.
trained by Sayama.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So he and I tagged, and then a little bit later in the same taping, me and Shark Boy tagged. So at the end of that, Mike Tenay goes, I see a future with you and Shark Boy as a tag team. And I was like, okay, that wasn't what I had envisioned, because I didn't plan on playing Curryman as a comedy character at that point. I was just going to be, Japanese wrestling guy. And then, so then once they put me and Shark Boy together, then the whole idea of Curryman being sort of more haha came around.
Yeah.
So
I was watching that entrance you just did,
Right.
and I'm thinking to myself, wow, you're really getting into that character. When you put the mask on, does it just make it so easy to?
Absolutely,
Because you're
dude.
kind of hiding behind the mask. I mean, that's how I am.
Yeah.
Even with the pair of sunglasses, I can do something different.
Well, yeah, and I think too,
Because you were doing it, man. You were
Once
all
a
in on that.
dance.
when there was a
everything.
period of time in Michinoku where I was frustrated because I think I was too concentrated on being the wrestler. And finally, and the character Curryman, I didn't understand what they were trying to get because I had never seen the comic book character that it was based on. So I had no frame of reference. So literally, it was an Indian, a guy from India. And so for the first 2 weeks, I literally pretended I was Apu from The Simpsons. Like I would hit a move and then I'd be like, so sorry. And then Grand Hamada, later on, Grand Hamada goes, hey man, stop that shit. Just wrestle. Wrestle. So I went out and I wrestled. And then about a month in, or like a couple months in, I was like, wait a minute, why am I being so serious? I have a plate of food on my head.
Yeah.
What am I doing? So I literally, that was me getting out of my shell of being wrestler guy. And that was when I decided, I started dancing to the ring. I wrote "Eat Me" in Japanese on my arm. I started wearing the hats to cover the mask. So when I took the big hat off, there was this big reveal.
Nice.
And that was when it kicked up another level as far as being over. And then in Japan though, I would do the entrance and then the bell would ring and I would wrestle. And I would hang with these guys and they'd be like, okay, this Curryman's a great wrestler, yay. In TNA, I took the dancing to the next level where it was in my wrestling. I would do dance spots. I would tango with my opponent, or I would do something where I dip my opponent. All these dancing spots, and that got over. And then I started doing this thing where all the girls, I tried to be Curryman, the ladies' man. So I remember we did a backstage interview with me and Shark Boy, and then Angelina Love and Velvet Sky. And I remember going up to Angelina and I go, maybe you, me, action, and everybody popped. They're like, oh, he just has to have sex with Angelina Love, yay! So that got to be sort of the idea that Curryman was this ladies' man and he was flirting with all the knockouts. And so I did that for a good portion of the TNA run. So
Tell me how you feel about working so hard to be this wrestler, and then it's all the Gaga that gets the reaction.
I'm okay
fine
with
with
it.
it,
I'm
man,
completely okay with it. I mean, I think everybody goes through that period of time in their career where they're super serious about what they're doing and they want to be taken seriously. And I think it comes from time and experience and comfort where you finally realize you can have a laugh in the ring, you can relax and enjoy. And that also gets entertaining. Fans will pop for the wrestling. They'll pop for the high spots, but they'll also come up for the comedy, something that pops them or makes them laugh, or something that catches them off guard.
As long as it's good, as long as it's well done.
Exactly. And I found that sort of broadened my horizons as a performer, not being so strict and be like, I am a serious wrestler. Of course, we're always in there telling the story that we're trying to win, we're trying not to lose, but we're also out there, in the back of our minds, we're trying to be entertaining.
Yeah, man.
And I think, and especially in this day and age where fans sort of know, but they don't know what the gig is.
Yeah.
They want to be entertained too. They know they're not watching UFC. They know they're not watching a boxing match or a football game. They know what they're watching.
Listen, though, Chris, even in those things you just named, they're trying to be entertaining now too.
Sure.
All of them,
Of course,
man.
of
The
course.
smart ones are, anyways.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Of course, because they've seen how we as wrestlers have added longevity to us by being entertaining and drawn more money.
Yep.
You know what I mean? The ones that are most successful in those avenues are the guys that are trying to be more like us.
That's
so.
right.
So you graduated from college with a degree in theater.
Mm-hmm.
So did you kind of use that as far as when you became a wrestler? Did you see a difference as the background of theater and what you learned from that portion of it?
I absolutely, especially in terms of doing, well, first of all, being an actor, to me, the mentality of I had no problem being the center of attention. And so that was something that helped me in wrestling to sort of, like, I wasn't shy. I wasn't like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to get up in front of these people. I was always getting up in front of people. I was the class clown. The teachers were like, hey, sit down, goof. Go do your schoolwork and stop trying to be, the comedy dude. But I mean, that was me. I was the extrovert in school. And so when I was in theater and acting, once I went into wrestling, that helped me in terms of like, okay, when I was doing promos, I knew that I needed to have a hook in my promo. I needed to have something to talk about. It wasn't just, let me tell you something, brother. I'm gonna fight with you and blah blah blah. I would get into it. I would have a story to tell, even if it was a 30-second promo. I had a hook. I had something that was gonna catch you. Something that was going to get your attention. Yeah. And so, and the thing that made me stand out then was I had watched wrestling all my life, so I had a frame of reference, and B, having that comfort and confidence to be up in front of a camera or, with a microphone in my hand, I could talk. And then you get guys that are first-year guys that are, well, I'm just going to go out there and do the best that I can, and they're not very loud.
110%.
Yes, yeah, very cliche, because that's what we do when we first go in. The tendency is like, okay, I'll do what I saw growing up, or I'll do what I saw as a fan. And so everybody sort of does the cliches.
And Chris, when we're younger and we're just starting out, we really don't have anything really to say. Like, I mean, we don't have any experience to back up like the stuff we're talking about.
Exactly.
So it's not
It's not genuine.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And I actually did a seminar this weekend for Ken Anderson School in Minnesota.
Did you go to Minnesota?
Yes, I was in Minnesota. Yeah. And so and I was telling those guys, like, when you start out, everybody's doing things like "come on" or yeah, the cliche. You do a move and then
and then just a really manufactured fire.
Ding ding ding.
Like somebody will do a move. I see a lot of people doing the same one. They'll do the move and then they'll go, ah.
Yep.
What is that?
It's manufactured. It's because
the Hardys did
the
it.
Tommy Dreamer
or somebody.
Something. Yeah. I mean, anything. Any one of those. Yeah. Or ah. Or any of that. So often,
there's no real heart behind it, man. They're not all in on it when they put it out there. You got to let it all hang out.
It's the same thing as a move to them. They do a move and then they do this move, which is get the people behind you. And so, like, I tell young guys, I see young guys do this all the time when they're doing what amounts to their comeback, and they're doing like a bump and feed. It's bump, come on,
yeah, that's right.
Come on,
yes.
Come on. And I'm like, the minute I see that, I'm like, you're brand new because you're not comfortable. And the comfort, you'll know a guy. You'll know a guy who's comfortable and who's not comfortable because it's the stuff in between the moves that he's doing. That's when you can tell he's comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
If he's looking like, what's next? Oh yes, it's hip toss. Oh yes, it's body slam.
You can look in their eyes, man. You can see the wheels spinning.
Exactly.
And it's because they're not staying in the moment, Chris.
Right. Exactly. They're thinking, what's next? What's next?
Yeah.
What's next?
Instead of just going. When you get there, it'll come.
And I tell everybody, it's the reps. You go to class and you learn how to do this stuff. Then you get in front of a crowd, and that's where you learn when to do it and why to do it. And it's the stuff in between when you can relax and interact with the crowd and react to the things that are being done around you, whether it's a fan heckling you or the referee talking to you or the manager on the floor engaging with you. Once you sort of get out of that what's next moment, then you can sort of relax and enjoy and tell a story and interact with everybody where they know that it's spontaneous and not something that we talked about in the back because it is time to do this,
That makes me think of a match you had at PWG, I think, and some fan was heckling you, and you just get the mic at the end of your match, and you're like, this guy couldn't even afford the good seats. He has to sit way in the back.
Is there such thing as a bad seat?
Not in PWG, but I got hot because I remember that night. I got hot because the guy said, basically he said I was phoning it in, and I got so furious. I usually let fans go when somebody, hecklers, you bought a ticket, you're allowed to heckle, you don't like me, that's cool. I'm not everybody's favorite flavor of vodka. But this guy was like, this guy's just phoning it in, boo. And I was like, I went nuts. I try not to swear. I try not to swear at school or schools at shows because we think there's kids out there, even PWG. But I was like, listen, dude, you don't know one damn thing about wrestling. I'm in here. Well, I'm censoring it here for all of you because I completely went off on this guy, and I was like, you don't know a fucking thing about wrestling, man. I come out here and every bump I take could be my last one. Don't ever say I'm phoning it in. I never phoned it in ever once.
Exactly.
I was furious, dude. If I saw that guy and I was behind the wheel of my car, he'd have been under my tires, man. It would have been terrible.
Hey, let's talk about the Ultimate X.
Okay.
Holy shit.
That was like one of the things about TNA that made me go like, okay, this is what's good about TNA.
I dug it, man. Yeah. I dug the concept. I loved the idea. It was, to me, it's the newest thing, or it was like the most original thing that TNA had ever done.
That's right.
And probably still is. And to this day, I think if they had a better, if their public perception wasn't so bad right now, it would be much bigger of a deal. It's almost, to me, it stands up there in terms of TLC matches. Like that also is a match that can stand and
it was an original concept.
Exactly,
it wasn't borrowed from another. Yeah.
The big problem that I had with it is that they went to that well so often. I think they've done, like they only started doing it in 2004, and it's 2017 now. So in 13 years, they've probably done 50. And I know for a fact that I did like 10.
And each time you have to try to top what you did before, man. And then obviously what happens when we do that.
There were periods of time where I felt like they did them so often, and I know for a fact myself and Frankie Kazarian, we went in with the idea of like, we're gonna kill ourselves, and they're never gonna book us in this again because they know we're gonna hurt ourselves. We just went in there with mad, like crazy ideas. I'll tell you an idea that we had that we never used because they changed the setup of the Ultimate X. The one that we did in San Diego when Bound for Glory was in San Diego or the Southern California area, there was an Ultimate X, and it was me, Frankie Kazarian as Suicide, Amazing Red, Homicide, and the Most Shady Machine Guns. And the original idea that we had for the finish was Frankie and I were going to climb opposite trusses because I had done the big dive once. I had done that as the finish. I dove from the top to get to the middle. I did that as the finish. So, and then Frankie, maybe 2 years later, he did the thing where someone was hanging in the middle and he dragged a leg drop. And so he basically, from the top rope, dropped the leg through the guy and landed on the deal. So this thing you're about to see, you see how the trusses are above us?
Yeah.
See, that was the first time they had ever done trusses. Usually, there was no sort of ceiling on top of the cables.
Yeah, I've never seen it like that
They
before.
did that for a while because they couldn't fasten the trusses to the ground in Southern California. So the original finish for this match was going to be both of us diving from opposite deals. Frankie was going to dive first, and he was going to land. And as soon as he landed, I was going to dive and land on top of him.
Yeah.
So we were basically stacked on the middle of the X. We were going to fight to a position where we were basically standing on the cables. I was going to hook him like I was going to Angel's Wings him, and then he was going to back me. No, that was what we did instead, which was even worse. But the original idea was
Angel's Wings.
I was going to hook him for Angel's Wings as I was standing in the middle of the X. He was going to backdrop me. From there, I was going to take a backdrop from the middle of that X and land on my back in the ring, and then he was going to fall. And then whoever was going to win was going to finish.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
So this particular thing you're watching, instead, we decided that we were going to fight. I was going to try and basically do a flatliner, which is something I did. But because my legs got hooked up, instead of falling flat back, my legs got hooked and basically I almost fell head first.
It looked like you got that. Oh, man,
but you notice we were so tight together. I was holding on to him so tight that instead of falling flat, I turned like this, and he took the brunt of it all. Okay. So it looks like I died.
It looked like you dropped.
That's on when you look up Chris Daniels almost dies. That's the clip that comes up.
So this one here, like I'm used to the Ultimate X having a cage.
Oh right. No. This was always
the trusses?
It's always been the trusses. Yeah. It's always been the trusses. And so from that moment
Are
on.
you thinking King of the Mountain?
Yeah, King of the.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, I was like, King of the
He
Mountain
did
has
no.
a
He
little
did a
cage.
King of the Mountain
Oh,
match.
okay.
He did a King
I
of the Mountain
enjoyed
match.
that. I enjoyed those matches.
It was just
We just
weird.
had to have somebody tell Raven he needed to do promos so we could actually put the match together.
Man, I like the idea of trying to do something fresh, but that one to me always seemed very complicated in its rules. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's pinned, so he's in the cage. This guy that pinned him is now eligible to climb. That sort of stuff. So.
Yeah, but aren't you already up there where like, I thought there was an X that you had to grab.
Yeah, but it's underneath us. Like, it's on the
hanging
cables.
on the
It's actually
cables.
on the
Yeah.
cables. So using the trusses, we fought on top of the trusses, and then we went down to where the belt was hanging. And then as we were fighting, we got hooked up and we fell. Right after that bump, Red comes through there and he grabs the belt. The other two guys, you see the guns. The guns are climbing opposite sides. They're going to go to the center of the cable, and Red's going to beat him down and get it from the top there.
And the reason you couldn't do the spot you wanted was because the truss
The
was
trusses
there.
were there
So
now.
you would have hit the truss and then.
Yeah, well, there was no ceiling. Yeah, they're like, we couldn't dive to the center because that truss
Yeah.
was there. So yeah, that was the alternative. We thought that was a better idea. It wasn't. It was poor. I went backstage and Samoa Joe goes, "Don't you ever do that again!"
No kidding,
like
man.
at the top of his lungs. Like, I thought he was gonna kill me
I'd
there.
have been like,
for
"Don't
almost
worry,
dying.
I won't."
Yeah, no kidding. I did, man. I absolutely said that was a one-time thing. Trust me.
Okay, 4-sided or 6-sided ring?
It never bothered me either way. The one thing that did take getting used to in a 6-sided ring.
Yes, I know exactly what you're going to say.
4 corner rings.
Yep.
The angle of
90.
the corners is 90 degrees, so
Yep.
it's easy to stand on the top rope. You get 6-sided rings, and it's like 135
It's
degrees,
ridiculous, yeah.
and it's hard to stand on the top rope. So once I figured out a way to stand on the top rope, everything was fine. Like, to me, bumping in the ring, hitting the ropes, it's all comparable to me.
For me, it was a big issue because since 1991, Silver King, one of my first matches in Japan,
Right.
Silver King open-handed me in the side of the head and bursted my eardrum.
Oh, so your balance is probably
All
wanky.
from
Okay.
then on.
Okay.
Yeah. So like for me to climb up there, it was always a chore, man.
Telling you, man, just standing up there, and I figured it out. Like, but you definitely stand differently in the 6-sided ring than a 4-sided ring, and it's so much easier in a 4-sided ring because you've got that balance.
Other than that, I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, me
Because
neither.
I don't
Me
really
neither.
need to work the ropes that much.
Yeah,
you know?
and they always said, like, oh, they're tighter ropes because they're shorter. I didn't
That's okay.
mind. Yeah, I like
that
tight
means
ropes.
you can jump up on them and they're not going to be as flimsy.
Right.
Yeah.
So and like they, some guys would say like because I don't know if the structure, like
It
the
might be a
middle
little
was tighter.
stiffer.
Yeah.
So what?
Stiff rings never bothered me. Like, I never took a bump in a ring where I was like, ugh, I'll never bump again in here. It was like, it's a bump.
Unless somebody has wrestled in a late 80s, early 90s
Right.
WWE
I never
ring,
did.
I
I
don't
never
want to
did.
hear it.
Right,
man.
right. I heard stories about the old boxing rings, and they didn't.
Yeah, I was like a billiard table, man. You ever
Yeah.
fall on a billiard table?
I can imagine. I never had to, but I know what it's like, so I could figure it out.
Oh man.
So yeah, those were brutal, man. And I wasn't the story like it wasn't until Vince started taking bumps. He was like, God damn, why is this such pain?
Yeah.
Let's make these softer.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
It was
Let's
when,
make these
when I
little
left
softer.
WCW to go. Well, when I didn't just leave.
Right,
I was
right,
helped.
understood. Right.
But that was one of the things that was one of the things Jim Ross was his major selling points. Is we're getting new rings.
Yeah, good.
Which when I got back, sometimes we had them and sometimes we didn't.
Right.
And you could tell which matches we did.
Crazy. Can we talk about UPW?
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you did a documentary. I think it was in 2001. I have it right here. The Body Slam documentary.
Yes.
For UPW.
Yes.
And I love this documentary not only because it shows all the different aspects, but I think it's crazy. Like, you're the only one still wrestling that was in this.
Yeah. Yeah.
That-
And the funny thing too, like I got that not because I was a UPW guy, because I never really was a UPW. I don't think Rick Bassman ever looked at me as one of his guys.
Really?
No, because he didn't train me. Like, he had guys like, Heidenreich and
Nathan Jones
Nathan
and
Jones.
Joe and
But I mean, not
Oh.
even Joe. You can't really count Joe as a UPW guy either. And I don't think, like, Rick Bassman had his guys that he pushed for, and those guys that got the developmental deals through UPW. And I wasn't one, and that's fine because I didn't train there. I tried to help out, but I understood. Like, Rick Bassman had his guys that he was bringing from the ground up, and I wasn't. So I was fine with that. But this particular documentary, it was me. Wasn't it Heidenreich, me, the girl
the girl that was married to
Drazan,
Malibu
Right.
from
and then who's the
American
other?
Gladiators.
There's one
Gladiators?
other guy, right? There was 4 of us.
Chris, I believe his name is.
Is it Chris Bell?
No. But,
Chris Evans? No.
No.
Hey, wasn't I supposed to have a match with you at some point in UPW? No.
I don't know. That would have been cool. I wish we had. I wish we had.
I'm pretty sure that was like Rick was
I know.
trying to get me on the show.
I know
pretty
that
sure he mentioned that.
I know that me and Tom Howard worked Kevin and Scott.
Oh yeah, you guys went over, right?
Oh God, it was terrible. Well, here's the thing. Bassman comes up to us and he goes, "Yeah, okay, you guys up." And I go, "What are you doing? Are you kidding me? These guys haven't tagged in forever. You're gonna bring them here and we're gonna put me and Tom over?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's good for us." I'm like, "No, it's not. It's terrible. It's terrible for us." And we went out there, and of course, Scott and Kevin are over like Grover, and we go out there and I'm like, "Oh God, this is so bad. This is
and
so bad."
they don't care. Those
No, they're
exactly.
Yeah. And I was like, "No, guys, please." And I tried to tell Rick, I was like, "Please, we will win by going out there and being competitive. Yeah, just doing something. Please put them over." Nope. And I was like, ugh. So we beat them in the crowd, like,
and I still see promoters that insist on doing that shit, and it's just asinine.
I know.
It never works.
Right.
Never. The best way to do it is just to go out there and give that guy a hell of a match.
Right.
Unless the thing is if they're bringing a star in,
right,
it's usually not a heel that people hate. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's someone that they want to see. Someone they want to see. He did it one time too. He had a match where Crash Holly came in and wrestled John Cena, and this was before John Cena was John Cena. John Cena was still prototype. Yeah, and he goes, "Yeah, we're gonna put John up," and I go, "Wait, Crash is a star. John doesn't lose by losing to this guy. He earns that respect. He earns that match." And he goes, "Yeah, but Crash Holly's like low on the totem pole in WWE." And I go, "Perhaps so, but you look at the difference between the worst guy on the Chicago Cubs and one of the best guys that isn't in the Major League Baseball. Do you know what I mean? Crash Holly is still, at that point, he was still a WWF superstar.
Yeah.
So John losing to him then wouldn't have been bad, especially because he was a heel. Yeah. Crash Holly was a babyface. And of course, John going over, it was like, okay, someone we like just lost. Meh.
Sure. Going backwards a little bit to when that first time I remember seeing you,
right?
That TV's that was right around the same time that John was coming around. They were looking at him too.
Yeah. I was a little bit prior to him, but he started to come around right around that period of time. I actually, I had a dark match the night that Austin and Mike Tyson had their face off, because that was done here in Cali somewhere.
Oh, wow.
And I remember it was me and this guy named it was an Irish guy, big tall Irish guy, and then Crash Holly and Vic Grimes also had a dark match that night, and that was one of the first times that Crash got looked at in terms of like bringing
when
him
he
on.
was Aaron O'Grady.
Yep.
May he rest in peace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mikey Henderson was the other one in the body slam.
Oh, okay. All right.
That you're fighting against, and then he screws you out, and you have to leave. And then in that documentary, it shows your your WCW tryout with Mike Modest, where you do that. Now, not only do you take this terrible...
Oh, it's horrible.
It's so scary. But then I watched the rest of this match, and you're doing like skin the cats back into the ring. You're doing dive to the outside. You guys wrestled a full 8-minute match.
Yeah.
After this crazy
neck
bump.
break. Where I almost broke my neck. Yes.
Yeah, and your arm goes limp.
Yeah.
What was this like for you?
Terrifying. It was the worst injury I'd ever had at that point, because I'd had stingers before. And you get bumped.
Yeah.
Here it comes.
Oh.
Yoink. Bonk.
No,
so I landed on my head, and I've had stingers before where you get it, and all of a sudden the feeling comes back. It didn't. It stayed numb, and you watch my arm now, and it's dangling, and I lost all feeling in my shoulder, in my trap, all the way down.
At least the other one still works.
Yeah, exactly. And we wrestled this whole match, the whole thing.
Mike Modest was a heck of a wrestler.
Yeah, man. I had great experiences with him, and he was great to work with.
And
he seems like another guy that always was like an extra or an enhancement talent, but never got picked up.
It was like he was very well respected, but for some reason they just never brought him in full time.
Yeah, he was already hired at this point there at WCW, so he and I sort of were under contract when it went down. But like when they were doing the Beyond the Mat, he was one of the guys in Beyond the Mat, him and Tony Jones. And
Tony Jones a black guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always got the impression that part of the problem that they saw in Mike was that Mike looked older than he was. Do you know what I mean? He was already getting like the receding hairline. And so like physically speaking, he looked great. He was thick. He was muscular. I mean, he was a cruiserweight. I mean, in terms of like he was a shorter guy. He was shorter than I was, and I'm only 5'10". So I mean, when you're that short but you're super thick, they look at you like
shorter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think he looked older than he did because of his hair. And so I think that was one of the reasons why that never really worked out for him, even though he was completely great and for a while had a good lot of buzz about him. I always thought, I think that's working against him.
It looks like you were still trying to hold on to
I
some
did,
in that
man.
match.
I had hair probably 3 years longer than I should have, and once it got dark, and I said, "Oh God, you could tell." I blonded it out, and so that kept it on for a while because my hair and my scalp looked the same color, and you couldn't tell where one started and the other finished.
I'm still trying to do that.
Oh,
Obviously,
man.
you can tell.
Once I realized, man, this isn't. I can't hold on anymore. There's no other way I can make this happen so where it looks like it's a full head of hair. Once I shaved it, everybody was like, you should have shaved it years ago. And I realized, like, this is one of the reasons too, I think people don't realize how old I am. And I think because I've looked the same way since 2002, like, it's like, God, you're still going? How old are you? And I'm like, oh, well, I'm 104. You know what I mean? They just look at me like, oh, I've looked the same, so they don't see the age. I feel the age, but I don't.
I wish I had the guts to do it to just shave mine. I was thinking about it while I was sitting in jail the other day.
Oh man, headlines would have been crazy. You came out with a shaved head.
Right.
Oh,
well, man, it was just everywhere, and I'm just like, I wish I could just get rid of it.
See,
man.
I always wanted. That was what I was always going for, was the long hair and the ponytail that I could put all the way back. And once I grew it out, like this stuff here. The funny thing was, I never understood conditioner or any of that. I was just like wet hair. I would go out and it would just, when it dried out,
clown?
Oh, completely just throwed out. And I was like, ugh. So for a while I had the short everywhere except the ponytail. And then finally I was like, this is no good. I
put mine back in the ponytail to cover up my huge bald spot.
That's all right. It still looks good on you though. So I mean, it's still the ponytail's still you're still rocking.
I had hair transplants like a year and a half ago, and they just never grew in because it was the same time I messed my shoulder and my arm up really bad, and I was all swollen up and so they didn't take.
Oh, I got you.
I went through all that, and they
didn't
never
work.
grew in.
I
might try it again, or I might just say the hell with it. And bzz.
I went down to Bosley Hair Transplant and had the consultation, and they showed me the picture. They take the picture from up here, and at the time, this was like 2000, 2001. They were like, okay, well, you can't work out for 3 months, and you probably shouldn't wrestle for like 9 months. And at that point, I was like, well, wait a minute. It's going to cost me X. I won't be able to earn money for a year. Or I could buy a $5 razor and shaving cream. And, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I did. I was like,
and now, like, you can't even imagine you not being a bald guy.
When I see pictures of me with hair now, it looks like I'm wearing like something on top of a bald head, like a hat of hair. It looks terrible. So I should have shaved it in like 98, but I did it in 2001 or 2 or something. So.
Maybe if you shaved it, they would have hired you.
Maybe so. They fired a lot of guys because they wouldn't cut their hair. You know what I mean?
That's right. I mean, people don't think that would be a thing, but it is, man.
Yeah.
Or they might not have got fired or whatever, but
they held it
might have
against
been.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I talk to Frankie about that all the time. He talks about it too. But
yeah, they were trying to get me to cut my hair at one point. I wasn't going to do it.
Right.
Shave the beard and everything. I'm like, I don't like my chin.
Well, see, so many times some of the stuff that, like, for example, Russo asked me to do at TNA, it was just stuff to do. I felt like he was like, grow a beard, and I was like, okay.
Right.
But I mean, in your feud with Sting,
right?
Is that
he was
you
like,
had
grow a beard, and he goes, you should do something like a face tattoo, and I was like, okay. And he had that idea for a couple. No, God, no. He was like, obviously we weren't going to get a face tattoo. He did the same thing with Joe. He made Joe do like face paint for a good year, and it was just like, it's just stuff.
Oh, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
No, I didn't like that at all.
Yeah, not on Joe. Yeah,
how was your experience working with Vince Russo?
Not great. I mean, he and I, we never really saw eye to eye. I think, no, that's not true. There were periods of time where we were seeing eye to eye. But in the end, my experience with him, I always felt like if things weren't going a certain way, he always had a reason that wasn't because of him. It was someone else. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, and he's always said, you know what, and I'll clear the air on something. Vince Russo has always said that I don't thank him for the things that he did for me. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. So, Vince, thank you for trying to book me into the angle with Sting. I really appreciated that. Thank you for putting me together with low key, and he looked skipper. That was great. And thank you very much for talking them into booking myself and AJ Styles in the main event instead of Travis Tonko and AJ Styles in the main event after the second time we did Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles when he was heavyweight champion. So yeah, those were things that Vince Russo did for me. There were other things that Vince Russo did that weren't necessarily against me, but he wrote stuff that basically made me look bad, and then he would go, "Hey, you're not over," and I felt like the thing that I always felt was like, there are two sides to that. Like, I can go out there and do everything you want, and if it doesn't get over, you have to then go, okay, well, what I'm writing isn't getting him over. So, I mean, that was always our argument. Like, he always had other reasons why things weren't going well. There was a period of time I would never come back from a match, from anything he did or anything he wrote. I would never do it and come back and go, did you like it? I would say, was that what you wanted? And he always went, yes, yes. So in my eyes, if I went out and did everything you asked me to do, and I did it the way you wanted me to, and it didn't get me over, then now you have to look at yourself and go, okay, what I'm writing isn't getting someone over. I have to write in a different way. I had this discussion with him. I said, Vince, you're the writer, and your job is to spotlight my strengths and hide my weaknesses. What do you think will get me over? And his exact response was, bro, your work is going to get you over. Your work. And so he wanted me to be the wrestler.
Yeah.
And then, so I went out there, I did an angle, or I did this stuff where I came out and I said, I'm going to be the best wrestler in the company. And then I went out and I lost all the time. And I was losing to everybody. And I went, well, wait a minute, now I'm not the best wrestler. So you've taken the one thing that's supposed to be my thing, and now you're making everybody else better at it than me. And then you're like, hey, bro, you're not getting over. And so, like, I got let go in 2010. I came back in 2011, and he actually had a meeting with everybody. And he pointed me out, and he goes, Chris, the reason we let you go is because you weren't over. And I go, okay. But in the back of my mind, I'm going, but that's not all my fault. It's some of it has to come to you, too.
Said that in front of other people?
Yeah, all of us.
Nice.
Everybody. Yeah. And you know, it wasn't to bury me. It was like he was trying to have this discussion with the talent. Like, basically, his point was, trust us to write. And go out there and wrestle and trust us. And my response to that was, we've trusted you for a long time and it didn't work out that way. So now you have to look at and go, okay, this isn't working. But they never did. It was always like, this isn't working because this isn't working because of that. It was never, this isn't working because what I'm doing isn't working. So
is that what happened in like the Fortune segment with like you and Ric Flair? And he's like, oh, you got a Rolex, kid? Was that like Vince Russo just...
No. That was just Rick. That was just Rick burying me, really.
Oh, wow.
And honestly, and I've always thought, I always thought, like, I had as soon as he buried me, we had that promo, and the whole point was supposed to be me and Bully Ray. And Rick came out first, and he goes, bah, I don't even know who you are. Oh, wow. And the fans were chanting my name, and he goes, these people don't count. And in my head, I literally almost said this. I almost said, Rick, you don't know who I am because you've been drunk this whole time you've been here. And I thought if I had said that, it completely would have got me over.
Right.
But at the same time, it would have like buried Rick a little bit. And I didn't want to bury Rick because he's Ric Flair and I would never bury anybody. But I mean, he also too, he was like, hey man, whatever you say to me out there, I know we're just trying to work to make this thing. So I don't think he would have been specifically mad.
He wouldn't have been hot because I used to hear some of the stuff I said to him on TV.
Right. But the business of that segment wasn't me and Rick. It was me and Bubba. Okay. And so that I didn't say it. Actually, and I was like, okay.
Actually, I take that back. He might have gotten hot, but he wasn't going to do nothing about it.
Right. Yeah, he might have said, like, hey, man, don't say that again. And I would have been like, sorry, Rick, you sort of forced my hand. But, that was one of the things, too, like, where you go out there and you try and work it on the fly. But at the same time, I was like, if I get into this with him, now I'm completely going away from what we're supposed to be doing because the match was going to be me and Bubba, like,
in
4 seconds later.
Would you have done it different?
I don't know, man. I don't know. That was always in my head. I was like, what if I had done that? And I don't know what the response would have been. I might have gotten yelled at by Vince and them. That wasn't the point of the segment. You know, you don't know.
Was the point of the segment to bury me?
Yeah, exactly. And that was just Rick getting fired up and going off as Rick would do every once in a while.
Maybe just like get color for no reason and spew it all over people in the front row.
Yeah. I mean, Rick, Rick was Rick, and he would do stuff, and he would feel it. I mean, he would feel it, and that was his thing. And no one was ever going to, Rick, you need to do what we tell you.
He was great at that.
Yes.
Amazing, man.
Yeah.
Like, I could say little things that make little, like, playful jabs about, like, Nate, but, man, it was just an honor to do, even when he tried burying me. It was an honor to be buried by Nate's boy, Ric Flair.
Yeah, absolutely. And that period of time where it was like the immortal guys versus the fortune, and I was thrown into that was fun. And yeah, you want to do that sort of stuff with guys like that and learn from them. But like at that point when that all happened, I thought, okay, I could, but it's probably not best. So I ate it, and if I suffered because of it, or if my public persona suffered because Rick was burying me, to me that was a small price to keep the path we were supposed to get. And
hey, so not because I mean we could keep you for out. Well,
we could.
As long as
I'm here as long as you want me, man.
The thing is, I don't want to do that to you, but I want to talk about your tag team with Frankie Kazarian, because I'm a big fan of that, man. Talk to me about how that ended up.
Okay, there was a period of time in TNA where it was right near the end of Fortune, and so Fortune was Bobby Roode and James Storm, AJ, myself, and Frankie, and they were splitting Bobby and James, and AJ was always, they always had ideas for AJ, and I felt like they didn't really have a path for me. They didn't really have a path for Frankie, and so they had started doing the turn of me against AJ. But I also felt like, okay, well, that's short term, because they've always gone to me and AJ as a thing, and they've always put AJ over Strong, and I always felt like, well, every time we go back to that and you push AJ over again, you just remind people that I'm not as good as AJ, which, whatever. AJ 100% was always the guy, and that's fine.
But they knew you'd have a great match with him.
Exactly. But I realized that, right, I wasn't, at that point I realized, okay, we need to do something for me, and Frankie didn't have anything going, so we pitched the idea of doing the tag team. And then they came back with the idea of me trying to blackmail AJ, or me trying to blackmail Frankie, and the idea of, first, the original idea was Frankie had a relation, a behind-the-scenes relationship with AJ's sister, and that was going to be the reason, like, if I told AJ that Frankie and his sister were together, he would be mad, and so that was why Frankie was doing what I want him to do. And AJ's response was, dude, if Frankie and my sister got together, I'd be thrilled. He's one of my best friends. That's awesome. So then Frankie had the idea of, okay, well, let's do it where Frankie knows the secret of AJ and Dixie, and that all turned into me and Frankie trying to blackmail AJ and Dixie, and then me and Frankie trying to blackmail AJ and this girl that he might have had a daughter with, or a kid out of wedlock with. But I mean, because of that, even the parts of that angle that didn't work, the one thing that did was Frankie and our chemistry, because we'd always been friends and we always had like minds as far as like putting matches together. So like once that happened, the team that ended up becoming Bad Influence, me and Frankie, that became something that was entertaining. And Eric Bischoff and Jason Hervey, they sort of let us go do what we wanted to do, and we could always go to them and go, what about this, what about this? And we had a great relationship between the four of us, trying to build segments and build promos and stuff like that.
That that whole angle that you're talking about, the whole it seemed kind of convoluted, man. A lot of stuff going on. Like, I just don't think that's needed.
The original idea was that this girl was supposed to be a niece of Dixie's, a relative, and because she was going through drug problems, AJ was her sponsor, and that was why they were getting together. Because Dixie, as the public figure, didn't want to be associated with it, but she also wanted to get help for her niece. So AJ was the sponsor, and because AJ's a good Christian kid, that's why he would do that. And so we, at the same time, though, this girl was supposed to have a kid, and we were going to say, oh, AJ and her slept together. And this was a kid that was supposed to, because this was all supposed to happen in the past. This was all supposed to happen while we were still friends. So it wasn't supposed to happen right then and there. So we were like, okay, this girl has a daughter or a son that's like a year or two old, and then we would be like, okay, that's AJ's kid, and we were going to do a gimmick where AJ would me and AJ would fight. I would get color on him, and then I would take like the blood-soaked towel and use that to get a DNA test, and the end result was going to be Maury Povich. We had talked to Jason Hervey about having Maury Povich and having Maury Povich.
No
AJ
way,
Styles,
really?
yes. And
Oh
Jason
my God.
Hervey, the minute we mentioned Maury Povich, he goes, my agent and his are the same. I'll talk to Maury. So the idea was going to be, we were telling the world that AJ had this child, taking advantage of this girl while she was vulnerable, going through
Drug addiction.
Yes, AA or whatever. And the end result was going to be, AJ Styles, you are not the father. And we were like, what? And then AJ beats the crap out of us.
I knew it was going to be Maury-like, but I didn't know you guys were going to get Maury.
Yeah, and see, the trick was, we wanted it to be someone that was already born. We didn't want, and then they were like, oh no, he's had this girl, she's pregnant now. And we were like, wait a minute, AJ's not sleeping with her now. This is something that we all knew when we were friends, and that's why I'm trying to blackmail him now that I'm a bad guy.
Yeah.
But it did get all.
Whose creation was this?
It started out as I want to say Vince, Eric, and Jason. The idea of that, and then Frankie and myself and AJ put ideas to it, and then we all sort of got together and tried to make the best of it. And then the girl quit in the middle because she was a Universal Studios employee, and people were finding out who she really was and just burying her on television. And she didn't show up one day because she was also trying to be an actress, and she felt like all of this publicity was bad for her. So yeah, she just quit one day, and like we had to do it without her. We had to do the big reveal with a different person as a lawyer going. She wrote out a letter that says that this was all CD and Kaz's plan, and we just made the best of a bad situation at the end.
Hey, sorry, my little baby Lula down here. Is
No sweat,
snoring
no
like
sweat.
a
I knew it was the puppy dog. I knew it was the puppy dog. I see you guys catching. I was like, she's really loud, isn't she? I thought she was either growling or she was hungry. Like one of the others. Like, give that.
Because she can't close her mouth.
Right.
And I don't know what's going on, but boy,
She's out cold.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to bore you, Lula. My bad. Almost. I know I talk a lot.
Hey, so Chris, you just mentioned Vince Russo, Eric Bischoff, and Jason Hervey. How was that with those guys working together? Like the dynamic between Eric and Vince, and
to me, it seemed okay.
They
I
worked
mean, they
well
got.
together?
I don't know if they worked well together. I know that they always had their own ideas, and I think when you get two guys with strong convictions about their ideas, you might get a little bit of this. But to my eyes, I never saw like, you're the shits. No, you're the shits. I never saw that sort of flare up. I thought that they were working well together near the end.
But I just thought that they brought those guys in, and then they still let Vince do write the TVs. At the end of the day, he was still writing the TVs, even though, when they brought Scott and Kevin and I in, with Hogan and all that, I didn't realize that Vince was still writing.
Right.
And it would have been, to me, it would have been good to let somebody else take over the creative at that point, but that's just my opinion.
I mean, those are decisions that are made above our heads.
Of
and
course.
what can you do? You just
Bitch
literally
about it like I always did, and
Well,
it doesn't do you any good.
Yeah, I mean, the most we ever did, all we realized was that me and my crew, AJ, Joe, Frankie, all the guys that were in the X division, our mindset was, we can't change this. Nothing we say is going to make them go, you know what, the X division's right. We need to change, or we need to do this. We just tried to get the best. Whatever they gave us, we tried to make the best of it we could.
Right.
And sometimes if we brought up something like, hey, this doesn't work, or this would be better this way, sometimes they'd listen, and sometimes they'd get offended and be like, no, just do what we tell you.
That's what I ran into all the time. That was my problem. Was like, there wasn't any room for hey, how about we do this? No, it had to be right that way.
Now see, that was the good thing about when Eric and Jason were doing the stuff with me and Frankie. It was 100% like, oh, that's a good idea. Oh, I felt like between the four of us when we would get together, the mindset was let the best idea win.
Yeah,
and
I've always everyone has to have input that's involved, or to me it doesn't work well,
right?
Or not nearly as well.
Something Vince said to me once was I don't tell you how to wrestle, don't tell me how to write. And I felt that both sides of that were wrong. Yes. You do sort of tell me how to wrestle sometimes, and I'll do what you ask me to do. But at the same time too, I'm not a writer. Well, I am a little bit. But I'm not like I'm not a writer like he was a writer. But at the same time, I'm a storyteller, and I understand how to tell stories, and I understand how to, further characters and get certain points made. So I mean, I felt like my opinion was valuable to be heard, at least understand why my point of view is this. And if you go, no, this is why it has to be this way. At least I've been heard. But a lot of times it was, I think this should be like this. No, shut up, do what I say. Well, that's just like, okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it was like,
It takes a little bit of the wind out of your sails.
Exactly.
Man.
Exactly. Yeah. It's hard. It made it hard sometimes to be excited to work when you felt like you were getting a lot of struggle to make it better or try to make it better. You know what I mean? And not that everything they did was bad. It wasn't the case. It was hit and miss. Like everything is hit and miss. Nobody's hitting 100% ever. You know what I mean? Yeah. So but when you saw things that we all grew up as fans.
Yep.
So if we look at something and we think, wait a minute, this is why it doesn't work, or this won't work because, then you have to understand that the fans are probably going to think that way, and we wanted to catch it before it got to the point where the fans pointed out, hey, that's the shit.
And they might not think about it consciously, but on the subconscious level, it's in there. They know something's either right or just not, or just a little bit off.
Right.
That's just how it works.
Yeah. So I mean, when we finally had that sort of back and forth relationship with Eric and Jason, that was probably the best period of time creatively that Frankie and I had, and I felt that we were one of the most over aspects of the show at that point, which made it more disappointing when our contract ran out and they were like, you're like, okay, well, whatever. I thought that we, as Bad Influence, there was a period of time where we were really, really good, and
about as good a team as you get, man.
Yeah, and I felt like they were going out of their way to feature everyone but us.
Yeah,
and I was like, all right. And the funny thing was, Frankie was like, oh, they're getting rid of us. I go, no, they're not getting rid of us. I think it'll come back around. And I would look around and be like, there's no one left. It has to come back around to us. And then in the end, Frankie was right. They were getting rid of us. So I was trying to be positive, but
Why'd you guys change the name from Bad Influence to The Addiction?
Once we made it on TNA, it was a TNA like work for hire. So like when we left, Frankie asked, we were like, hey, we'd like to be Bad Influence because originally it was our idea. They didn't even want to call us Bad Influence. We were doing it on our own, and then it got over. And then when we left, they were like, well, you can't call yourselves Bad Influence because we own it.
Even though we're never going to use it again.
Exactly. And they never did.
You're not going to use it.
Exactly. And I've never understood that. And that's sort of like, even like the thing with the Hardys, with that going on, that whole thing. Yeah. Like if they really wanted to use it, they would have made an effort to meet and give Matt and Jeff what they wanted. Yep. But for them to go, okay, we don't want the broken Hardys, and then let them go off and then be mad that they're trying to do that which they created somewhere else. It's like, you obviously didn't want it that badly, or you would have made the deal to keep it. And so I always felt like that was just sort of like sore feelings, you know what I mean? Like a spiteful, well, you know what, if we can't play with your toy, no one can play with your toy. It's like,
but now as The Addiction, or not The Addiction, is it The
Addiction? Yeah, The Addiction.
Okay. I didn't know if there was a The in
there is, yeah. We're not just any addiction, we're The Addiction.
So what a difference a name change makes, because like all of a sudden you guys are in ROH and boom.
And the atmosphere in Ring of Honor is a lot more laid back in that respect. Like we came to them with the name. They're like, okay, it's your name. You know what I mean? When you go away, if you go away, and they don't want us to go away, and we don't want to go away either. But I mean, it's yours. I mean, that's your creation. You did this, and so and that was Frankie's idea too. The idea, like things that start out as a bad influence can soon turn into an addiction, and so that was his idea. So 100% his call.
And well, I mean, I was kind of being half-ass kidding, like, because I mean, it's just a different
right.
I mean, different atmosphere. Like I was going to ask you to tell us the big difference between, you know, your experience in TNA and now with ROH.
For me, well, first of all, I've always gone out and said how much I appreciate Ring of Honor making the room for me and Frankie.
Yeah.
Like I always had a good relationship with them, and I felt like if the opportunity arose, that I would be able to go back. But I had no idea that they would also let Frankie, because Frankie didn't really have that history that I had with Ring of Honor. But
he's so good, though.
Yeah, he's absolutely great. He's one of the best I've ever. He's literally the best tag team partner I've ever had. Nice. And you know,
saying something.
Yeah, I've had a lot. But when we got there, they gave us the opportunity to prove that we could compete at a Ring of Honor level. And, you know, they put us in there with Red Dragon the very first night, and we had a really good match with those guys. Had a good opportunity to work with them, with the Briscoes, with Motor City Machine Guns, doing stuff with the Young Bucks over the last 2 years. I feel like that has sort of cemented our place as far as like being a good tag team in the business. And, you know, I think people will look back at what me and Frankie did over both companies as something of merit.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
How does it feel to go from being in the first main event of the first Era of Honor Begins show against Bryan Danielson and Loki to winning the Ring of Honor title at the 15-year anniversary?
I think it was, first of all, it was a very emotional moment for me. You know, the idea that they finally saw merit in having the title on me. Because, you know, necessarily you've been around, you had championships, and there are championships that you never had, and you're like, okay, I'm good with that. And honestly, if you had asked me a year ago if I would retire without being world champion, if I would be okay, honestly, I would have been okay. It's nice now that I don't have to think that way because I've gotten it. But yeah, I think like me winning it now, it wouldn't have had the same effect if I had won it in 2006 or in 2010. Like the story of me winning it 15 years after and 24 years in my career, I think that was a good 50% of the story. The idea that I failed so often that this, what conceivably would have been my last title shot, that's what made it such a memorable moment. And the storyline of Frankie joining the Bullet Club, I felt like that we couldn't have pulled that off any better, I felt. And just the reaction that we had from fans when Frankie turned, he got so much hate on Twitter, and there was so much, and people were speculating that he and I were going to go off and have this blood feud once I lost the title match. And then just the reaction the day after me winning, just seeing people's reaction like, oh, you got us. It's so hard to get people sometimes. Yeah. And I felt like we just had the perfect storm of great guys with their characters on social media, the story on television, and just the timing of it all. You know, I realized that I don't have much left. I don't have much longer left in the ring. And it was a cool story to tell, that idea of the guy getting his one last ride almost with this title, and it means a lot. It absolutely does.
It really made me feel good.
Yeah, cool, man. And that was the thing. I felt like I literally spent 20 minutes out of every hour the next 2 days thanking people on Twitter, because people reached out to me publicly on Twitter, direct messaging me, texts, all of these ways. And it's so many people, guys that I haven't had a chance to even talk to or see. But I mean, people that I've worked with in the past that reached out to me and were like, hey man, congratulations. It felt great to see you deserve it, that sort of stuff. And I felt like if my interactions with those people were so positive that when my day came around, they felt compelled to reach out to me, then I feel like I've done well. I always really wanted the respect of the people I worked with, and to know that they respected me enough to, even in this business and knowing what this business is, to reach out and congratulate me for this. It meant a lot. It really did.
And man, to me, what it shows is that hard work always pays off when you have the talent and the good attitude to go with it, man.
Yeah.
No matter what, if you stay in, it comes.
That's something Mike Moran, one of the Texas Hangmen, he was one of the first guys that was a mentor to me. And he said to me, talent will always rise to the top. Just you got to keep working, keep your nose clean, keep a good attitude, and it'll come around. It will come around, because honestly speaking, we see so many guys in the business, but I mean, if you take a step back, you can count the really good ones on, you know, it's a smaller amount than you think. It's a smaller amount than you think. And so like, if you work hard, that stuff's going to come around for you. So I was lucky. I was very lucky and very fortunate. And
what lies ahead for you?
Well, now it's continuing to try and build a title reign. I'd tell, you know, you look at the guys that held this before me, guys like Joe and Bryan Danielson and Low Key and Seth Rollins and, you know, Davey Richards, Eddie Edwards.
I think about Jerry Lynn as ROH.
Jerry Lynn, yep, Jerry Lynn. Yeah, and that stood out to me too, because he won it late in his career as well.
And when he did, had some of the best matches of anybody in wrestling at that age, which is what you're doing now too.
I'm trying to. I know, like, to be compared to Jerry Lynn in that respect is a big chore because Jerry Lynn's one of the best ever, and if people look at me in that same light, then I'm completely honored because Jerry was another guy that coming up was like, oh, this is the guy, this is the man.
Sure. And how does your body feel right now, man?
It's a little sore. I mean, I won't lie, it takes me a while to get over big matches, but I mean, I benefit from the fact that our schedule is lighter than WWE schedule. And, as long as I can stay healthy and avoid injury, as all of us, struggle to do in pro wrestling, I've always wrestled the same way. I've wrestled smart. I don't do things I don't think I can do.
Try to stay in your lane.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I tell guys all the time, if you can't do something 10 times out of 10, don't risk it. Don't try and be a hero. Don't try and, make your name off of this crazy bump that you may or may not be able to do. I've always wrestled smart, and I think that the guys who have the mentality of trying to do it for the long term, those are the guys that wrestle smart and succeed because, like you said, stay in your lane, do what you do. People know me for certain things, and every once in a while I'll try something new, but it's not to change my game 100%. It's to add to the game that they've come to know. And then when someone buys a ticket to see Christopher Daniels, they know I'll do certain things. They know I'll go for certain things, and I want to give them the best Christopher Daniels match that I can, and that's my job at this point.
And Chris, something I noticed about you, and you can tell me if this is true or not. You just seem like you've always been a guy that's been healthy, taking care of yourself, never had like an issue with with chemicals or that. And I just I don't know if that's
no, it's true,
but it just seems like it.
It's true.
And these are the things, man. Like when you do it like you do, like it just makes it so much easier to succeed.
Yeah.
Man.
Again, I say I'm very fortunate because I've avoided big injury, and that usually is the doorway into the chemical stuff, like getting injured and trying to work through. I mean, I look at guys like you guys who had the schedule too. It wasn't just the injury, but the repetitiveness of it. Like you had the schedule, the grind.
Sure.
I never really had the grind. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I've been able to succeed for as long as I have, because I was never like the 5 times a week guy. For a short period of time, like we were like 2 or 3 times a week. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I wanted that schedule, but I mean, in the long run, it benefited me to never get that schedule because now I'm still able to perform at a certain level for the schedule that I have. But yeah, I was fortunate enough to avoid like even that neck injury that you saw. I never really went into a period of time where I needed to mask the pain or get through the pain. Like I took the time off that I needed to, and then I adjusted my work so that I could continue to work injured when I was working injured, and then once I was healthy, I never did certain things again to avoid that injury again. So I mean, it all was. So it was sort of the plan. Like I understood if I could avoid that injury and not risk, the guys that go up and risk these big bumps and could get injured. Like I knew what I could do every time and could continue to. If I wanted to do something on Monday, I wanted to be able to do it every match I had that week rather than, I can only do this bump once every 3 months because I'll be hurt for 2 months after.
And you're not a guy that's known to be injury prone.
Right,
that's
right,
just
right.
not one of your things. And to me, like what I notice about you, and this is how I've been like, my weight never fluctuated. I never put on a ton of weight or that. Like I try to stay, I wanted to be a big guy, like because that's where I thought you needed to be. But like to me, like not carrying that extra weight has meant a lot as far as not getting hurt.
Yeah, there was a period of time too where I was, everybody like 200 pounds was like the magic number for a lot of us at this weight.
Just wanted to see 200 on the scale.
Exactly. But there was a period of time where I was like 208 legitimate. Yeah. But I remember that period of time too. I would get tired real quick. My legs would feel weak, and my matches were suffering. And I realized, the number's just a number. If I can go out there and wrestle, no one is watching my matches going, oh, he's only 195 pounds or whatever. Sure. And so like right around the time where I turned 40, I realized, okay, I need to train functionally. I need to be able to perform. I don't need to be 240 and jacked and be able to lift. I don't need to deadlift 505 pounds. Mm-hmm. All I need to do is look like I belong in that ring and be able to wrestle like I belong in that ring. So I did a lot of stuff like like P90X, the full body functional training style stuff, just so I could continue to perform. And I tried to not get fat and try and stay as cut as I could, because I was never going to be tall enough to be a muscle guy. You know what I mean? I mean, even if I was 240, I would be 5'10" and 240, which would make me a fire plug. And so, like, me trying to be like Jinder Mahal, who's super tall and super jacked now, like I wouldn't have been able to get there. So to me, it benefited me more to be lean and look athletic rather than to be, a professional bodybuilder look.
I used to have an issue. Okay, when I was WWE towards the end, they used to have guys get on the scale and they'd weigh them.
Really?
And I'd always say, no, I'm not doing it. You're not paying me by the pound.
Exactly. And what a kick in the junk that must have been too for guys too. Like, hey man, you're doing great, but you're just 190 pounds, so off you go.
And then I remember Kurt Angle coming to me one time. He goes, "Can I talk to you?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, of course." I'm like, "Yeah, of course." He goes, "JR, he keeps telling me he wants me in Olympic shape, and I'm, that's not something you can be in all the time, man.
Especially on the schedule you guys had. How difficult
it's just
that
a
must
silly
have been
thing
for
to
you.
say.
Exactly.
And I just told him, I said, just feel fine, man.
Right.
Just however it's gonna be fine. Like, just say, okay, yeah, and
Yes,
then
sir.
just
I'll
do
do
your
it,
thing.
and then continue to do what you're doing.
Yeah, because when somebody said something like that, it's like, obviously you might not know what you're talking about if you think that's healthy.
They don't understand what it takes to stay in the condition you are. Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So with everything you're doing in Ring of Honor now, what TV station would you think they would fit best on to be national exposure?
Oh man.
Outside of being syndicated?
Yeah. Do you see them on like a Spike?
It would be cool if it was a Spike, but I mean that all depends on the television station. I mean, I understand back in the day Spike was the man channel.
They're not going to be
they're,
anymore. They're changing all that.
Yeah,
anyways.
they're doing all that anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a channel that is the answer for Ring of Honor, because in this day and age, especially with the network, I wonder if it's an app that is the answer for Ring of Honor. To get an app, like we're doing stuff with Fight TV now, where you can watch our television show on the Fight TV app. We air syndicated either Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so that Monday on the Fight TV app you can watch our show.
I think it's going to. Sorry, I mean.
No.
I think it's going to be the thing.
Yeah.
But I still think TV is king.
We absolutely do need television, and I think that we're looking into stuff like Comet. The Comet channel is something that we're doing now, and we recognize that that's a very niche audience, and even the Comet guys, the people that watch Comet, don't necessarily want wrestling because it's a science fiction deal, but they're looking into another channel that is more like action movie style thing, and that's what Ring of Honor is hopefully going to get on. And then hopefully too, like there's always been talk of us growing into a 2-hour show. I hope that's the case. These are all things that we're talking about behind the scenes. Not me personally, because
I just fall down.
Well, I mean, I think having 2 hours means you have enough real estate to show enough of your roster. Right now it's tough. We have 44 minutes in an hour that we can get guys on. And if you've got, like, we looked at our roster and we've got like 35, 40 guys that are talented wrestlers that, when you're trying to split 44 minutes among 40 wrestlers, you're not going to be able to get everybody over and get everybody established. So I hope that we get enough time to be able to show these guys that are talented and still continue to feature the guys that got us there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Ring of Honor has always been about new guys coming through. A lot of guys, this is their first opportunity to be seen by a national television audience, a national wrestling fan base, and they're breaking through. Everybody's trying to, you look at someone like Dalton Castle. Yeah. He's someone that has made his name in Ring of Honor, and if we continue to just focus on the stars and not give opportunities to guys like him to break through, we're going to be stagnant after a while. Right. And so having 2 hours, it gives us the opportunity to keep the guys on top that have been there, like Jay Lethal and Jay Briscoe and the Young Bucks, those guys that got us there, but also giving opportunities to guys like Dalton Castle and
War Machine.
Jay White and War Machine and Flip Gordon, a guy who just joined our
he's
group.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's outstanding. I mean, we need to keep our stars and continue to feature them and give opportunities to young guys coming up to be the new stars of Ring of Honor, because Christopher Daniels isn't going to last forever. Right. It feels like forever, TK. It feels like I've been here forever. I understand that. But I mean, at some point, I've got to hang it up, and we all know
it feels like you've been in the studio talking to us forever?
Hey, man, like you said, we can talk for hours about this. But I mean, yeah, I think there's going to come a time where Jay Briscoe won't be at Ring of Honor. Jay Lethal won't be at Ring of Honor.
Huge Jay Lethal fan right here, by the way.
Exactly. Jay's
amazing.
He's the franchise of our company right now. He's the background
man.
of this company, and I'm proud to work in a ring with him. He's awesome.
I'm proud to know that he's just a really, really good guy.
And
man.
he honestly, we make this joke. Like when we came into Ring of Honor, Frankie and I always joke, man, you've changed. But the truth is, he went from being just one of the guys to the locker room backbone. And we saw that immediately when we got there, because he left TNA in like 2011. And so from 2011 till 2014, he was doing Ring of Honor. And when we got there in 2014, I looked at him and I was like, holy crap, that's Ric Flair. That's Ric Flair of Ring of Honor. He's the backbone. And people go to him, and people look to him, and he's the man. And it's just benefited. He's benefited that company so much by being in the company, and that's one of the reasons why I think Ring of Honor is still successful.
Any title defenses coming up against Jay Lethal?
I actually defended the title against him in Australia 2 weekends ago, and had a great match. Again, it's an honor to be in there with him and be able to. It's something that I challenge myself. If I can go in there with a guy like Jay Lethal and still have a great match, that's how I know, okay, I'm still doing all right, man. I'm still doing all right. Jay doesn't have to like get into a lower gear for me to keep up with him. I felt like he and I worked well together, and I wasn't, I'm 47 years old. And so like, I know that those days are coming short. Like my bumps are slowly ticking down, but at the same time, if I keep myself healthy, if I keep myself working at this level and pushing myself to stay at that level with guys like Jay and Jay Briscoe and the Young Bucks, I'm going to continue to be a viable member of the Ring of Honor roster. And so like the next title matches, May 10th in Dearborn, Massachusetts, I defend against Matt Taven. And if I win that match, I go on to May 12th, the War of the Worlds pay-per-view, in a 3-way against Jay Lethal and Cody Rhodes. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Hey, Jimbo.
Yes.
So,
brother?
Crap. Before we let Chris go ahead, man. Have at it. He's the wrestling geek question guy. I'll hit you with it now.
Hit me with a couple.
So I know outside of Ring of Honor and being the Ring of Honor World Champ, you have another job working on the Waterworld show at Universal Studios.
Correct.
Can we talk about that?
Yes, we
can.
can.
To talk to you.
Oh, man. It's just, when I found out you were like the head ripper at the Waterworld show, I was like, this is amazing. We have to go see it.
Yeah.
So how did this come about?
Okay. Well, Universal Studios Hollywood has had the Waterworld show for 21 years. Yeah, it's the longest running stunt show, and it's one of the top rated stunt shows in the United States. I auditioned for it 2 years ago and had to turn down the role they offered me because of a tour that I was on, a wrestling tour that I was on. But this year I took a month off from wrestling and did the audition again and got offered the role of Deacon. And right now I'm one of the low guys on the totem pole. Like they have 5 to 6 guys that fill every role so that they can have running shows throughout the year. And I'm one of the new guys, but for me, I was the rookie. I was the rookie going into a set establishment and learning the stunts and learning the fights and doing the lines. And now I feel like I've done it for a year now, and I feel like they've respected my performances, and I'm moving my way up the ladder. And this is going to be something like once I'm done. One of the hard things I think is going to come from me retiring from wrestling is the idea that I love to perform. And I mean, when I get done wrestling, of course, I'll be involved in wrestling behind the scenes, but that's not going to scratch that performing itch. And I think this is one of the things that's going to make that okay for me to retire from wrestling, is the idea of trying to branch off into acting, doing stunt work, doing something like that, trying to continue to be the center of attention, because I'm a sucker for that.
And, the thing about performing is this is, well, maybe not this, but, acting in front of the, camera and, doing a TV show, that's but man, performing in front of a live audience.
Yes.
Best drug in the world.
Exactly. I love it. And that's the thing. Like, I think that's the toughest part of the idea, that at some point I'm going to have to stop wrestling, is that if I don't find some sort of venue to perform, I'm going to just go nuts.
And when is that time going to come?
So far, I think it's
I don't
close.
mean a time. Give me a date.
No, no.
What's it going to take for you to say, okay?
When I'm not having fun and I'm hurt. Like when I'm hurt more often, like being bumps and bruised, like you at this point too, you've wrestled.
That's an old familiar friend to me.
Yes, exactly. So I mean, like it's tough. It's tough walking up and down the stairs, but it's not so tough that I'm going to stop doing what I do.
Right.
But I've always said, when I stop having fun and if I can't perform at that level, like I was saying about Jay, like if there comes a time where guys have to like slow down and be like, hey man, let's let the old guy keep up with us, then I'll know. It's a pride thing too. Like if I can't go out there and be proud of the work that I do, I'll walk away, man. I always said I didn't want to be here longer than I should, and I don't think anybody does. I think we go in there wanting to continue to perform at our top level, and one day I'll find out I'm not there anymore. Yeah. So I mean, it's gonna take that though. Because I love it so much that I'm going to try and use my brain, and that's part of even the character that I am now, the ring general. The idea of using my mind, because that's stronger than anything I've got looking across the ring from me. You know what I mean? They might be stronger, they might be faster, they might be younger, but they're not smarter than me, and that's my game. Nice. So
well, being 47 and all your years, 24 years plus in wrestling,
2 years older than me.
You don't. I've heard you say in interviews you don't think WWE is going to knock down your door to give you a contract.
Not to perform. And
So
I get that.
Would you be interested in going to the Performance Center and being a coach and a trainer?
Yeah, I mean, but yes, in the sense that I have no problem doing that. I'm sort of doing that same thing with Ring of Honor, and right now I'm very happy with the way Ring of Honor, like my relationship with that company. If that were to come up in the future, I certainly would examine that possibility. But yeah, I'm under the impression that they're not looking for 47-year-old rookies. Like when I was working with Bubba in TNA, and this was a couple years ago, he said, you're not too old to wrestle there. You're just too old to debut there. Right. You know what I mean? If I had been there before and I was coming back, I'm sure the door would be open.
I disagree. I think there's a place for you there if they ever realize it.
I feel like. Even years ago, I remember Austin Aries telling me that they told him he was too old.
Yes.
And he was like 36, 37 at that point. I'm like, crap. And I'm however many years older than him. And I remember Adam Pearce going through the same thing, like, oh, man, we'd love to, but you're too old. And, that's just the mentality. I understand when WWE looks at a talent, they're looking at a talent as something that they can invest in over a long period of time. And, so I understand. Like if they were to call me one day and be like, hey, no, we changed our mind, or we think you would be great in this position, I would certainly consider that. But my experience tells me that that's their mentality, and until it changes, I have to be okay with that. Or
changes a little. I mean, it changes when it's convenient.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And if that were the case, then yeah, I would certainly consider that. Yeah. But at the same time, like I said, I'm very happy. Like I can't conceive of a scenario right now where WWE offered me a performer's contract would be better or beneficial in terms of like how Ring of Honor has been treating me. So, I've never said never.
The door's always open. It's always there.
And I mean, situations change on a dime in professional wrestling. You know this. So, I mean, I've never said, no, I'll never do that. But I sort of am comfortable with the idea that it probably won't, and I'm okay with that, I sleep well at night knowing that things have gone this way. So,
changing gears. You want to be a dad?
I'm a dad already, man.
You are?
Oh, yeah.
How come I don't know this?
I don't know.
Two kids, right?
I have two. They're like teenagers.
Tell me about that.
My
before
daughter.
You go real quick.
Okay,
man.
my daughter is 13 years old, Jericho, and my son Joshua is 11. But we don't get a chance to talk very often either. I mean. More than, hey, how's it going?
And when we were around
each
other back then, I wasn't really I was in a different place.
Right. So I mean, yeah, we had kids 2003, 2005. But that's it. I've got one of each, so I did my part for the human race. That was all we needed. But yeah, they're growing up great. My daughter's in 8th grade. She's a dancer and an actress, an aspiring actress. My son, he's a pain in the ass, but probably because I got it coming. I was the pain in the ass, so it's my life's revenge. Yeah, my wife and my mom, they're both like, oh, he's you.
Does he ever hit you with some of your lines, like one for me?
No, he hasn't yet. So he probably has to watch more YouTube of me to get his.
He's like, and that's the gospel.
Anything for Chris TK?
So like you've said a lot that you've been in the game for a long time. Do you have any like favorite matches, like, you know, when you do retire, you just kind of think back, like, that was a really great, memorable match?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't have one more than the other, because it's sort of like saying which one's your favorite kid, or which one's your
favorite color.
What's your favorite color?
Yeah. You know, I'm always going to go back to the first three-way I did with AJ and Joe at TNA, because I think that has stood the test of time, and it affected people. The fans of TNA, like, they look back on that as like the glory days of TNA.
Yeah.
And that to me says something like that was something that TNA could have been if they had gone full bore on that. We just recently did Ladder War with the Young Bucks and the Motor City Machine Guns, me and Frankie, and I'm completely proud of that, knowing that I went in there at 46 years old, and I went in there with like a mission, like I wanted to show people like Frankie and I deserve to be in that main event spot too, and we went in there and we literally bled for that spot, both of us, and I'm completely proud of that match as well. It's probably one of my favorite Ring of Honor matches. You know, but I've been lucky, like working with Joe and AJ and the Young Bucks and Eddie Edwards over my period of time, and Low Key and Bryan Danielson. Like, I've been fortunate to be a guy that worked with some of the greats before they were great, or before they got as famous as they have been or are, and then being a part of two different companies at their beginnings. Like, people look at me as someone that helped build TNA and someone that helped build Ring of Honor, and I don't know if there's another wrestler that has that sort of history with both companies like I do. So I'm very lucky, and I feel like when I look back on my career, I feel like I've done a good amount of stuff. You know, I may never have gotten that WWE, you know, that period of time in WWE like a lot of guys get, but I feel like I've done a good amount for pro wrestling, you know.
Oh, hell yeah, man.
So yeah, man. Yeah, and if it wasn't for you, I would never have done it. So
if it wasn't me, it'd have been somebody else.
no, well, I said it. I got an award at Cauliflower Alley, and I realized as I was going over my stuff, I was like, man, if it wasn't for him, I probably would have, you know, been a comic book shop owner. So, you know, a lot of it has to do with you. And I say this too, and again, not blowing smoke because it's your show, but anybody from the 90s, 2000 that wrestles in that light heavyweight, cruiserweight style, they owe a debt of thanks to you, because you, to me, were the first guy that proved it was possible for guys like us to make it. So, I mean, you should start lining up these guys to come in here and just sit in this chair and go, Sean, thank you so much.
Make me feel better about myself.
It's your show, man. Let's change this to the blow smoke up Sean's ass show. You know?
Sounds good.
Well, speaking of comic books, you're a comic book
I am a
artist.
comic book guy. Yeah, this is the second book I wrote. I wrote 2 books with the guys from Oh Yeah Comics, Art Baltazar and Franco. They're Eisner Award-winning creators that have worked with DC and Dark Horse Comics. But this is the second book, Oh Yeah Comics Team Up #1. We sell these at ohyeahcomics.com, their website, and then at Ring of Honor, ROHWrestling.com, and Ring of Honor shows live. This was something, I wrote a comic book. These guys, Art and Franco, they're all ages comics. They do stuff for younger kids. And I had the idea of writing a comic book for a wrestling show because, you know, at shows, you've been to indie shows, most of the merchandise is DVDs and t-shirts for that 18 to 34-year-old. So I wanted something for that 10-year-old, that 12-year-old, that 6-year-old, that 8-year-old. And so I wrote this comic book with their characters, Awesome Bear, Action Cat, Adventure Bug, that, you know, a 7, 8, 9-year-old could read. And it's, you know, completely appropriate. And it's about me and Frankie. And, you know, so if I could get them, if getting this comic book gets them more interested in our wrestling, great. If getting this comic book gets them interested into comic books, great. You know, and we're always out there like, hey, promote reading. This is a comic book, you know. There's more. Man. This is more interesting than an 8x10 of me, although they're both great because I'm on it. You know what I mean?
And just
so,
to
I mean,
be able to hold it in your hand instead of looking at it on a screen.
Yeah, yeah. And,
you know?
and the thing, too, like for me, this was another, like the idea of performing. This is something I created. And I mean, if this is the only 2 books that I've ever written, I'll still go to my grave knowing I wrote a comic book and it got published,
That's
and
right.
people bought it.
Well, that was something I was going to ask you. So you grew up a Marvel fan.
Yes.
So you're a huge Marvel fan, and then to
Completely
become
huge.
friends with the people at Marvel, and
Yeah.
then make your own comic book, just keep checking those things off the bucket
Yep,
list.
that's
yeah?
exactly it, man. I still read. I'm still an avid Marvel Comics reader, and being able to meet some of the guys, some of the writers, some of the artists, and know that they're wrestling fans. Like, there's a huge comic book and wrestling crossover because I feel like it's the same sort of storytelling. Like, every month there's new comics, every week there's a new wrestling show, and I mean, we're 365 days a year wrestling. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Our stories, us going for titles and having feuds with our enemies, that's ongoing story. And it's the same thing in comic books. Every month there's the superheroes and the villains. And I tell people the closest you're ever going to get to real life comic books is pro wrestling. We're real life superheroes, whether we're high flyers or brawlers or, super strong, whatever it is. We're the comic book heroes of real life.
Yeah, man.
I love it.
Yes.
Excellent.
Well,
I mean, I
never
could keep
consider
going,
myself a
but
comic book- no.
I don't want
That's
to keep
it.
him another
We
2
gotta
hours.
tap out.
Part 2's coming soon. Tell everybody that you want me back.
Actually-
I'll come and talk to Sean anytime. man.
Actually,
Oh, we
we've
could
been-
definitely do a part 2,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
We did
Anytime, dude. I mean,
Damn right.
I live
Maybe we
here.
can come to you.
Oh no, man! You've got a great studio. The studio in my house looks like crap. So
Nice.
man, I've got a
Well,
garage.
not nice that it looks like crap.
I've
but-
got a garage. I've got a garage. You don't want to come in there with my washer and dryer and my comic book collection out there. Let's just come to your studio. It's air conditioned and very lovely. So
luxurious. Isn't it?
exactly. I love this place. Yeah, man. Anytime you guys want me back, I would love to come back.
Thanks, man. Chris, so grateful that you agreed to come in here and give us some of your time, man.
My pleasure.
Thank
My
you
pleasure.
so
Thank
much,
you, guys.
man.
Thank
I'm
you.
such a huge fan of yours,
Reciprocal, man.
professionally
Always,
and as a
always.
human being,
I'll
dude.
shake
It doesn't
your
get
cross.
much better than that.
My pleasure, man. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so
Sean. I
much.
appreciate it. Thank you, TK.
No problem. Thank you
so
for
much.
coming
Yes,
in.
ma'am.
What do you got going on that you want to plug, other than your comic book?
The
and-
War of the Worlds tour is this week. We're in Toronto this coming Sunday, May 7th. May 7th, we're in Toronto. May 10th, we are in Dearborn, Massachusetts, Michigan.
Michigan.
Dearborn, Michigan.
Okay.
May 12th, we're in Hammerstein Ballroom, New York City, the
Nice.
War of the Worlds pay-per-view. And then May 14th, we're in the former ECW arena for television taping. So that's the War of the Worlds tour, the Stars of New Japan, Pro Wrestling, and Ring of Honor Wrestling. I'll be defending the title twice, unless I lose the first time, but that's not going to happen. I mean, let's be honest.
Right.
Yeah, I'm on top
the
right
ring
now.
general.
So
He's
I
got
am the
this.
ring general.
You already know the finish?
Hey, Ixnay.
Oh, thanks, man.
Thank you guys.
so
Thank you so
Chris.
much, and thanks for people watching this, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Cool. Well, we'll be right back, and we'll close things up here on X-Pac 12360.
Hey guys, Maria Menounos here. We want to let you know about my new show on SiriusXM Stars Channel 109. It's called Conversations with Maria, and it's live Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Go to conversationswithmaria.com for more info. Buzz you later.
All right, we're back, and that was a great interview,
It
obviously.
was such a great.
They're
time.
all great interviews. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, put them all over, Sean. Make sure to watch all of our previous episodes on AfterBuzz TV on YouTube.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So,
And iTunes. Listen to
yeah,
that too.
man. Well, I appreciate everybody tuning in, as always. And I know there's some things that I want to talk about before we go up the air. Our guest next week, I'm excited to have him. I haven't talked. Unfortunately, it was at Mike Awesome's funeral the last time I saw Sean Stasiak, but he's agreed to come on the show and be our guest next week. Very cool.
Dr. Sean Stacey.
Dr. Sean,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Sean, if you're listening. And Sean is a second generation wrestler, and his father was Stan the Man Stasiak. He was former WWF World Champion, WWF, and looking forward to talking to Sean.
it'll
Some
be a lot.
interesting
Yeah.
stories.
A lot
there.
of interesting stories
Very,
are going to
very
come
interesting.
up for sure.
Yeah. So, and other than that, we have the next, by popular demand, we have the next Get High and Watch Wrestling show at Cinefamily on Fairfax in Hollywood with myself and my dear friend Ron Funches.
May 26th.
May 26th, yes. I believe it's 10 o'clock. I think it's 10 o'clock.
At night.
I think so.
Yes.
Okay.
When do you think? About 10 in the morning?
I was hoping, like, you know.
It's not
Late
get up and watch
evening.
wrestling. It's get high and watch.
Yeah.
I mean, wake and bake, whatever.
Okay.
You guys, you have any matches already planned for it, or are you still looking through?
We have some stuff that we've talked about. Jimbo's helping us with the video. Jimbo's going to make the video.
Yeah, I'm putting it together.
Yeah.
Got some ideas.
It's going to flow nicely.
Yeah, I hope so.
Oh, it will.
Definitely not going to be as long of clips this time.
Oh,
Just
good.
try and chop it up.
Yeah.
But
So, alrighty then. And am I missing anything? Okay. Also,
Saturday, you'll be
this Saturday, once again, I want to thank Pinfall Wrestling for bringing me in to Pawnee, Illinois. And is there a website for them?
There is, but it's not updated.
Okay.
So
Is there Twitter?
I don't know about their Twitter, but their Facebook and their website were pretty outdated.
Okay.
So need to-
They do still use their Facebook despite it being outdated. I did check their page earlier today.
Okay.
Good to know.
Well, anyways, I'm really looking forward to coming to Pawnee, Illinois this weekend.
You're going to try and get your gear back before then?
I sure as hell hope so, because it's not just my gear; it's like all my favorite clothes as well.
Oh, no.
Gosh.
Yeah.
It's everything you packed in a suitcase.
You know,
for
that's
Europe.
it's when you go to Europe, you never know what's going to happen, and when you go anywhere. So when I go somewhere far from home, I bring a lot of stuff. You know, I've condensed it down in recent years since they charge for check bags and all that, and that. But still, I bring as much stuff as I can cram into a suitcase.
Definitely.
All right. Well, enough. I've talked enough this week, ladies and gentlemen. So, I want to thank you, Jimbo,
Thank you.
TK,
Thank you.
and you, Mark.
Oh, thanks, Sean.
Very grateful to y'all, and very grateful to all you people out there listening and watching. We'll see y'all next week right here on X-Pac 12360.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Phil Svitek, Kevin Undergaro, show producer Jimbo Frank, managing editor of AfterBuzz Wrestling Christy Olson, and managing producer of AfterBuzz Wrestling Mark Bidonica, and the entire X-Pac 12360 staff, we would like to thank you for tuning in. Feel free to like us on Facebook, rate and comment on iTunes and YouTube, follow X-Pac on Twitter @TheRealXpac, and email us at xpac12360show@gmail.com. This has been a presentation of the AfterBuzz TV Network. Buzz you later!